Chris Davis just said then?
Well, look, it's simple, Matt. I've got a message in relation to Ashgrove that I will continue to serve the people there if they choose to re-elect me next year. In the same, I'll continue to work hard for them in the same way that I've worked hard for the people of this state. So in my own electorate, I have been working hard to do the things that people expect, such as get the economy going, to make sure our schools are working well and give our kids the best possible education. I've got a very good track record of delivery. We could go through this evening, but I'm sure you want to talk about other things. And if I'm re-elected in Ashgrove, not only will I continue to serve people as the Premier of this state, but I can assure people in that part of the world, a wonderful part of the world, that I'll continue to deliver. And I've got a great plan for the next 3 years, should I be given that support.
How frustrating is it to see one of your own MPs, a former MP, now saying he wants to run for Labor?
Well, that's up to him. My focus for this state has always been, continues to be, a few very important things. Firstly, supercharging the economy, creating jobs for Queenslanders, getting government reform. We have a vision to be the best performing state government in Australia, and the reforms we've undertaken over the last 2 and a bit years are seeing huge improvements in health, some very significant improvements in funding to education. And I noted your segment earlier on about the issue to do with criminal gangs and the tattoo parlours. But we are seeing crime rates drop 10%, and the crime figures are managed by the Queensland Police. It's the Police Commissioner who recently said that crime across this state has come down. Strong laws, almost 800 extra police in only 2 years, means that Queensland is a safer place today than it was 3 years ago for families. So these are the things that I'm working on. And of course, one of the exciting things is that we're seeing the Queensland economy rebound. We have very strong economic growth. We're only second place now in terms of the economic race between states. And most of the jobs being created in Australia right now are being created here in Queensland.
Chris Davis says that you knew about the concerns over the CCC appointment mechanism, and you could have saved yourself a by-election, and he says that the Cabinet should chip in and pay back the money to the taxpayers for the by-election.
Well, look, all I'll say is that this week I've stood up, I've recognised the issues that we feel that we've got wrong. I've said sorry about that, and now what we're going to do is demonstrate to people that in the future we will conduct ourselves in the way that I committed to this week. Now, an example of the sort of ways that we have as a government been making a far greater effort to listen to Queenslanders has been over the Strong Choices campaign. I mean, we do have $80 billion worth of debt that the Labor Party accumulated. We have, over the last 2 years, because of the strong decisions we've made, almost balanced the books. So next financial year in 15-16, for the first time in a decade, we will not have to borrow more money. But what we're saying to Queenslanders in a very upfront way is if you re-elect us, we have a plan to get that debt down. But more importantly, we actually have a plan to reinvest the proceeds from some of those assets into building this state's future infrastructure. It's very exciting, and there's a clear difference between the political parties.
Do you fear facing Chris Davis at an election?
Look, the only thing I fear is that we don't get on with the very important, strong plan that we have to get this state going. You do have a very strong team. We have a very clear and strong plan.
Do you think LNP voters might think of that as a betrayal, that he's now jumped ship and wants to run for Labor?
Well, that's something for political commentators to muse over, and people could go and ask members of the LNP. I'm really here to talk about what the government has been doing for Queensland,
and on that
and then
note,
what
maybe we could talk about tattoo parlour licensing
and what we'll do in the future. So I'm happy to talk about that as well.
Sure. The tattoo parlour licensing regime involves secret intelligence that those people who are applying don't get to see. Is that fair or natural justice?
Well, look, I was actually troubled by some elements of your story, and I'd like to go and review that case myself. And I can tell you that first thing on Monday morning in Cabinet, I'll be talking to the Police Minister, and I'm sure he'll be watching this show, and across the weekend he will have an opportunity to go and ask some questions. So I'll be after some answers.
What in particular did you...
Well, I want to check the facts first, and I just say that I'm not into injustice in this state. But what I don't make an apology for is taking a very strong stance on ridding this state of criminal gangs. And I'm afraid the criminal intelligence across the board says very clearly that criminal gangs have infiltrated tattoo parlours and tow truck operators, and indeed other legitimate businesses. And the advice from the Queensland Police Service and the Crime and Corruption Commission, it was the CMC then, was that we should take very strong steps to stop that activity permeating that industry. Because, Matt, just to explain to people who are watching this evening, these businesses that have gone off the rails, if I can put it that way, are being used by the gangs to essentially launder money and to also really carry out a number of other activities using them as a front. For example, drug distribution, illegal steroids. So the government merely acted on this one because of the advice of people like the Police Commissioner and the head of the CCC. The
Stafford by-election prompted you to change a number of policies. Why did you change the ones that you did? Why pick them?
Well, look, that's a good question. I thought, look, I'll put it like this. Cabinet sat down on Monday morning just past, and we had a very productive discussion. The Queensland public should know they have a very strong cabinet, some very high calibre individuals, men and women, and we actually mused over the issues. We had a good debate and discussion about it, and we went through a number of issues. And I was able to come out then with the team and actually say these are the things that particularly we acknowledge that we got wrong. So things like the bipartisan appointment issue for the head of the CCC, the issue about estimates hearings, the issue about the uniforms and the treatment of criminal motorcycle gang members.
How many motorcycle gang members were in those pink jumpsuits and in segregation?
Well, it appears that there may have been none at all to date, but certainly the segregation issue was there. But
how many were in segregation?
Well, I don't have that figure, but I mean, okay. The point is that if you need those figures, we'll get them for you.
I did
but again, we debated. The point is, Matt, is that we did have a good discussion, and there were many issues that were discussed, but these are the ones that we feel that
I noticed on your Facebook
wrong.
page on Monday when you made the change, someone asked you how many bikies were in pink uniforms and separate prison anyway, and someone from Premier's team said 2. Mm-hmm. So it just seems...
Well, I'll go with that figure then, Matt.
Yeah, I just wanted to check with you on that one. It seems as though the changes to the bikie laws were not really changes at all because they didn't have any practical effect.
Well, hang on. Let's just be clear about what we said. We came out and we said we were changing those particular arrangements because people had heard in the past that that was something that was being implemented, and what people had said to us is, you've gone too far. It's unfair. And not correct, and so we changed it. And whether it involved large numbers or small numbers, and by the way, the population of CMGs in our prison system varies, of course, at any point in time. But we actually listened to people and we acted. And I assure you,
you listen to people because you did some market research in December, and that was revealed in Bill Mellor's report to you in April, and it said the 3 least popular things were pink jumpsuits and prison segregation, the Vlad 15 to 25 year laws, and the anti-association laws. But you only changed one of those.
Well, can I say this, Matt, that over the last few months we've continued to talk to people and listen to people, and I just say to you that while people clearly didn't like the issue of the uniform and the segregation, over the last few months things have actually moved on. I think there's a very clear mood in the community now that they actually understand the laws are working. Again, criminal activity, according to the Police Commissioner, is down 10%. But if you look at that's across the board. But we're seeing, for example, on the north side of Brisbane, illegal entry down 27%. Property crime in Townsville was down 27%. That was a matter of the public record in the Townsville Bulletin. We have seen, for example, armed robberies initially drop on the Gold Coast by 40 to 45%. I was actually down at Broadbeach on Monday afternoon. A hairdresser leaned out of the window of his, leaned out of the door of his salon and actually shouted out, "Fantastic, good to see you, Campbell." And I know what that was about. It was about the fact that the Gold Coast, indeed the whole of Queensland, is safer today.
Yes, and we saw that earlier in the week. Bill Mellor summed up a lot of those changes. If I could just move, you said you were going to mend fences with the judiciary, yet the 3 members that you met with, 2 of them were ones you appointed, the Chief Justice Tim Carmody and the Chief Magistrate, and the Chief Judge was someone who's leaving the profession very soon, retiring. Is that going to be enough to mend those fences? Shouldn't you meet with the Supreme Court judges?
Well, here's what we've done. We've met with the head of the Bar Association and the Vice President. We've also met in the same meeting with the head of the Law Society and his deputy. We've also met with those individuals you mentioned. So the Chief Justice, Chief Judge of the District Court and the Chief Magistrate, and we would like to meet with the President of the Court of Appeal as well, and we're seeking to have a meeting with her. Those are the leaders of both the law, the bar, and indeed the judiciary. And we've put on the table our respect for the things that they do, both in the legal profession and indeed in the courts. And I've said to them very clearly, we want to move on. I'm not going to disclose the detail, I didn't yesterday, of those conversations, but they were very frank discussions. And, you know, if you like, I sought some reassurances from people and put some points across. And I also made an apology or two as well to people behind those closed doors.
Tim Carmody's public welcoming ceremony is next Friday. Are you worried the Supreme Court judges won't turn up?
Look, that's a matter for individuals concerned. Matt, that's not a matter for me. Look,
but are you worried that might happen? Because Tony Fitzgerald says this is the elephant in the room. He said that today, that Tim Carmody's appointment is not going to go away and is a blight on the legal profession. Well,
Matt, let me put it like this. The head of the Law Society has said very clearly in the past that he strongly supports the appointment. And there are many other people, judges, people like Alistair Nicholson, the former head of the Family Court of Australia. But I'm not going to go into the detail this evening on that. Just to say this, what's done is done. We're moving forward. The focus that I have is that we're going to continue to work hard to get the economy of Queensland going. By the end of this financial year, Matt, I'm very confident that we will be the lead state economically in this nation. We will be the engine room of job creation.
Can I just get through a couple of quick questions before we run out of time? The Annie Bikey High Court challenge, does your legal advice say that you're going to lose that?
Look, I'm not going to talk about matters that are essentially being dealt with in the courts. But
and
again,
G20,
I'll make one point. I'll make one point this evening. It's been made before. We sought expert advice, and someone who has been a critic of the government was one of the key people behind providing that advice. So we got the top advice because we wanted laws that would protect Queenslanders. So contrary to some assertions in some quarters, there was top legal advice provided, so we had strong laws to protect Queenslanders. And again, I stress, with 800 extra police, 2 police helicopters, strong laws, what's the result? Crime in Queensland has come down. But Matt, before you go, you're talking G20.
I've only got a few seconds left. Is Vladimir Putin welcome or not welcome?
Well, look, I'm going to make a call on that this evening in terms of ultimately that's up for the Prime Minister to decide now. I said my piece earlier on this week, and I said that he needed to cooperate. If the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister of Australia believe now we're getting cooperation, well, I think that's a different matter. But there does need to be this full independent investigation, and let's not preempt that.
I'm sorry, Premier. Thank you very much for your time. We're out of time. Thank you for joining us.